Quick one, Mina here. Thank you for watching this episode. I appreciate you. Thank you for all your support. One thing that you can do for me is to please hit the subscribe button below. I promise you that if you hit subscribe, I'm going to work hard to make sure that my episodes are really good, that will get better and better. So, do we have a deal? Okay, back to the episode. I wonder if you can tell me, why would someone stick around for this episode and watch it to the end?
Yeah. I'm really excited to share a bunch of different experiences and research to share why work can be done differently, why it can be more profitable than it currently is, and why people can have better experiences. And so I'm excited to share some of that journey, and I really hope that it will help business leaders and individuals.
Quite profound, really impressive background. You're a woman of many talents, and you've done a lot, and you are such a hard worker. I sense it. Like when we first met, I thought, when we first actually had a chat, and you reached out to come on the podcast, how has your background built you up? And you've been cooked into this oven called my history. How did it cook you well so that you're like this today?
So, I feel really lucky. I know that I've had, I've been very privileged in a lot of the experiences that I've had. But I reckon it starts from when I was a tiny little kid. My mum and dad said that my first word was why. And I must have been so annoying as a little kid, but I always asked why, if I'm being told to do something, why? And I think I've kind of taken that philosophy of just because someone said that you're supposed to do it, well, why? Just because it's written down doesn't mean that it's right, doesn't mean that it's serving everybody well. And I think that's been sort of a thread that's come through my experiences, and being able to serve in the military, study in academia, be in the corporate sector, become a parent, they're all in some ways quite different experiences, but I get excited about kind of bringing that all together. And I feel like now I'm like, yes, I've found what I'm meant to be doing. I'm bringing all these bits together and this sort of thought of why to...
Yeah. What's your why?
So my why is, I say these phrases, which sounds outrageous, but I'm terrifyingly ambitious about improving the working world. My why is, we live in a world where we are expected to work as if we don't have children, and we're expected to parent as if we don't have a job. And I don't think that's how the world should work. And so I want to do my very best to change that.
How are you changing it? That's a big shift. I mean, I'm sure people have been asking you this question before as to why do you think you can change it? It's a bit of a tough question there, but I'm sure people are thinking right now, so who are you to think that you could change it? And what sort of mindset would you have to even think? I mean, from the early years, you had that question of why do we have to go do it that way? Like, can it be done differently?
So, I mean, I don't think I'm arrogant, but part of me is like, gosh, there's a sense of arrogance to think that I can be so audacious as to have an impact on the working world. And I know that that's almost bizarre. I actually do have a pretty high sense of self-efficacy. So I do believe if I work really hard on something, then I should be able to make an impact on it. And I guess I've been, again, privileged and lucky with some of my experiences. I worked hard to get into the army, and I did. I worked really hard to achieve certain outcomes and mission success and got there. I wanted to do my PhD, and I did not enjoy most of it. It was hard work, but I've kind of had lots of experiences when I'm like, if I put my mind to something, I should be able to make some inroads. And I think one of the things that actually made this quite clear for me, Mina, is I was involved as a volunteer evacuating people from Afghanistan. Now, that's kind of a whole sort of separate story, but that task was seemingly impossible, and our team actually pulled it off. And I often use it as a case study to demonstrate why I believe what I believe. But in terms of your question, what on earth makes me think that I'd be able to have an impact on the working world? achieving that Mission Impossible task kind of gave me a bit of a, well, why not? Why not? I think I can't change the world by myself, but I think we can do it together. And if not me, then who else? Like, I think was it Steve Jobs? He says the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the people that do. So
it's amazing how one experience helped you refine that mindset. There was a shift in how you thought, wasn't it, with one experience, which is the Afghanistan evacuation experience.
Yes. And I've always been very determined before that, and I was determined, that's why I was involved in that. But it was this, like, honestly, this moment of, oh my goodness, like, how did we do that? Like, that was not supposed to succeed. And we did. And it gave me this, I don't know, this weird sense of confidence or optimism that, well, actually, why not? Why can't I have an impact on making the working world better? And why can't I get other people to be part of this? Because again, we do it together, not by myself. Why not?
And so I always thought that if I become a mother, when and if I become a mother, how on earth am I going to juggle this massive demand of being a mum and being a business owner and doing this podcasting, and how do you juggle that? And I hate those two words, juggling and balance. I don't know what that means. When I think about juggling, someone's playing with the balls, and in balance, the people apparently saying there's no such thing as balance. But how do you even tackle this? Because you wrote a book about work school hours, and this one here, and it's profound to me that you are so brave to even tackle this problem that has been going on for so long. How do you do this?
So I think I said one of my themes of life was the question why. Another one is I have this tendency to get really peeved off about a situation, and I'm going to do something about it. And so this was the work school hours, but I remember really clearly I was on parental leave second time around, and I've got this distinct sort of picture in my head, Maynard. I was about 2 a.m, I was up breastfeeding my baby. So I had a 3-year-old in bed, breastfeeding Monty, and I was just marinating on all this data I had collected about the experiences of working parents. And none of them were satisfactory experiences. It was people forced out of the workforce, people working all the hours and missing their kids, people doing some kind of a part-time arrangement, less pay, but same amount of work that they had to do. And I was just like, this is dumb. I don't want this to be my future. I don't want it to be anyone else's. So I'm going to have to do something about it. And that's kind of where it was born. And so I started, researching more and more on it, using my leadership background to think, actually, I don't see why we need to do work the way we do it. I think it can be different. And I think it can be good for business as well. So that's kind of where it started.
So you was researching as part of your PhD?
Actually, so my PhD was in leadership, and I finished it and was like, oh my gosh, I'm never doing any more research again. I'm so exhausted. But then I was speaking at events this as well before I was a professional speaker, and I ended up, so effectively I was talking about my experiences of serving in the army, doing research about leadership, and then I actually ended up advising the army on the results from my work.
So that's really impressive, by the way, if I may sort of zoom in on that, or you want to come back to that later, but I really want to learn, or find out how did you advise the army? That's a big task.
Oh, so, well, yes. And that was actually another example of being I'm irritated about something and I want to do something about it. So I did this PhD on leadership, and I did the case study on military, and that was just pragmatic. I had access to people to interview. I obviously knew something about it. And when I got all the findings, that's when I became peeved off. I was like, the army is awesome and people have great experiences, but actually it's not always treating everybody as well as it should do. And so I knocked on the door of the army, metaphorically, and ended up moonlighting for about 18 months. And I worked directly with the chief of the New Zealand Army at that time, which was Major General John Boswell. and kind of shared my research findings and then made recommendations for how they could make positive change. And that was like a real privilege to be part of that. I'm not saying that I've solved everything. That would be a gross exaggeration. But I'm actually really proud, Mina. Like they've implemented a number of the recommendations, and I hope and believe that the organisation will continue to become more and more inclusive.
What did you see in the army that you could improve?
So I looked at the leadership experiences of women, and which obviously was my own experience. And there were definitely some gender-related challenges that when I served, I just like to pretend didn't exist and would never even acknowledge it. I was like, I'm an army officer. There's no such thing as a woman army officer. I'm just an army officer. It's definitely no different for me being a woman, but that was just the, sort of story that I told myself. But there was some not very nice findings around, sexual harm was a theme. Challenges around, teaching a very specific approach to leadership, very kind of command and control, very directive, and that isn't actually authentic or natural to many people in the army. There was another theme around even just sort of the recruiting imagery that gets used and not always being that inclusive in that regard. So there was kind of a few different themes that I presented and made recommendations on. They've made, some genuine changes to their parental leave policies.
So how does it different now?
So actually, I'm probably not the best person to answer that because I'm not in anymore and I'm not completely all over what is the current policy. So I guess I don't want to make up an answer. But what I do know is that the policies that they had prior, there were definitely some gaps and issues and not always been that considerate of how it might be. And now they have made some positive changes. So.
Like in terms of like the hiring process for women and for parents, or giving them the right amount of leave, or what was it? Did you see the problem was in the policy that made you think this is not okay?
So literally we probably worked on about, 50 different kind of points and recommendations.
Gotcha.
But if I give you one, like really, which I think illustrates it. So the army is a really physical career. You do a lot of physical activities. You're in the field, carrying a heavy pack. You're, doing PT, physical training, running. So very, very physical.
Yeah.
And I didn't have children when I was in the army. I had kids afterwards. But when a woman becomes pregnant, there were some pretty shocking examples of leaders still expecting those pregnant women to do the same physical activities. And then when they return after having a baby, come back from parental leave, expecting them to just be physically back up to the same standard on day one. And one of the sort of really specific findings is every parent's experience of pregnancy, childbirth, and then having a newborn is different. So some people, they bounce back. Some people are just those, unicorns who are fit and healthy during their pregnancy, sneeze out the baby and, they sleep well and their body bounces back and they're back to physical activity. Awesome. But that's not actually the majority of experiences.
Right, okay.
And so expecting someone, back from parental leave day one to go and do a pack march for 12 kilometres, I thought was pretty unreasonable. And I think that they needed to do a lot more work in terms of how do they almost rehabilitate. So having a baby is not an injury, but, if you have an injury in the army, they have pretty good sort of rehabilitation programs with physio and making sure that you kind of get your body back to how it was beforehand gradually. And so that was sort of one of the specific recommendations about how they can do a lot better to make sure they are protecting those women's bodies when they're pregnant or returning postpartum. So that's just an example.
Yeah. And how did you feel about this whole experience?
So of doing the research or when I served myself?
When you served, not when you served, but when you were able to look over all these points and able to assess them and say, this is not quite right. I'm going to, like the whole process of assessing this work. I mean, like we're talking about it being such an honor. It's such a responsibility because you're, effectively changing the way something works, an institution or an organization. And there's a huge responsibility with that. And did you ever feel like, what am I doing here? Like, who am I to, like, an imposter syndrome?
Oh, every day. Yeah, I still do. Yeah. Yes. So yes, did I feel like, who am I? Who do I think I am that I'm, able to
come in and do this?
Yeah. So yeah, definitely experienced that.
How do you deal with imposter syndrome when it comes up?
I don't have a magic answer for that. I still experience it lots of days that I'm thinking, who am I thinking, Ellen, who do you think you are that you can change the working world? Don't be so ridiculous. But you know what? It disappears because I'm like, no, I believe in this. I believe that this is right. And maybe I am ridiculous for thinking that I can do this, but I'm going to give it a red hot go. And that was sort of the same, that word responsibility. The military woman that shared their stories with me, some of them were sharing stories that they hadn't actually shared to many other people before. And I felt this real weight on my shoulders that, wow, I've, heard some stories. And to be very clear, the woman shared lots of great stories. So that is really important. But the challenging ones were, wow, like we have to do something about this. And so, and with that really sort of specific example I gave you about women's bodies, the policies actually probably weren't necessarily that bad. It was more the implementation of those policies was really different across the organisation.
Yeah, how hard is it to actually implement?
So I think the implementation is much harder than the policy. So you can write a good policy, but what's really important is that you're making sure that everyone across the organisation is educated and is able to implement that effectively and consistently. There are examples where, one woman would have a great experience of going through pregnancy and returning from parental leave because she had a great boss. Someone else had a boss, not the case, and it would just be a really quite traumatic experience. So
moving on from that sort of experience, can you tell me about how you ended up writing the book, Work School Hours? And because we were talking about that, and then I got really interested about the military service and the assessment that you had afterwards. How did you end up going, I need to write a book? And I want to get into all of that.
So actually it was cool that you did ask me more detail about the military bit because I was saying that I got asked to speak at a few different events, and it was asked to speak about my experience serving in the military, researching on leadership, and then advising to the military. And so in those talks I covered, quite a few different themes, but one of the themes was just specifically around that challenge of basically becoming a parent, both the physical part of, the body changes, but also the juggle of, and I know you didn't like the word juggle, but I'll just use it for now.
Please do. Don't worry about what I like, what I don't like.
The kind of juggle of parenting and working. And that was sort of only, 10% of what I was presenting on. But all these parents, and they were predominantly mums, just started coming up to me afterwards wanting to share their experiences of being a working parent. I didn't set out to do this postdoctoral research. It certainly was not the same kind of rigor that my PhD had. So I don't want to pretend that this research is something that it's not. It came to me. And within about 6 months, I had data from more than 500 parents. And this was across a whole range of industries, people at different levels within organisations, mainly New Zealand and Australia, but I also heard from people in Singapore, the UK, Canada, the US, wanting to share their experiences. And this was not an intentional research project. It was just sort of, they kept coming to me, and I was like, almost this sort of responsibility that I've heard all these stories, I need to do something with them. And I said to you, I had that moment, 2 a.m, I was breastfeeding Monty, my 3-year-old was asleep, and I was just marinating on the stories. And I said, I was just like, this isn't right. I don't want this for me. I don't want it for other people. Like, why do we live in this world where we are expected to, as I say, work like we don't have kids, parent like we don't have a job? It just seems sort of bonkers. And so that's when I might be repeating myself, but started looking at, well, the construct of 9 to 5, where did that come from? Why do we do that? And that was from over a century ago, when every household had a dedicated worker, a man, and a dedicated caregiver of children, which was the mum. They were two different roles, but that's not society now, and it hasn't been for decades. We don't have, one breadwinner and one primary caregiver. And, so many circumstances, both parents are working. There's lots of situations where there's, solo parents, and so that parent is working. And so we don't live in a society where the person whose primary responsibility is to look after the kids different from the person that's working. No, they're the same people. And so it was sort of that, I'm angry that the world works this way. That's what made me write this book. And so I went back to all of my leadership training, both military and corporate, all of my leadership research, and was like, no, we can do things differently. And so I wrote the book, did a TEDx talk, and just started publishing articles. And I'd send it out to, 100 different places. 95 will ignore me, 4 will say no, and then 1 will publish. And then I just kept building on that. Same thing with reaching out to podcasts, reaching out to, media who are covering these kinds of things, and just trying to get this talked about, but not so much, hey, there's a problem, because I could talk about the problem for ages, but more, this is a solution. Like, I'm excited. We can do something about this. It doesn't have to be this way. There's actually a really pragmatic, business-focused solution that can address this, and that makes me really excited. Sorry, that was a very long answer, Mina.
Not at all. Not a long answer at all, because there was so much in there that I wanted to flesh out. Firstly, when you were talking to those military women, can you recall a good or a memorable story of one who you thought, gosh, I can't believe that, I must do something about it? Do you remember those stories?
Oh, Mina, I have so many of them.
One that really stood out for you that you thought, that's just, it's the jackpot reason why I should do something about it.
Yeah. So if I gave you sort of some specific examples around the physical requirements of the army and how that can be quite tough if you've just had a baby through your body.
Got you.
But if I do another one on
well, more like the parenting.
Yeah. So there was one example of a woman who had just returned from maternity leave, and she was still breastfeeding. And I think she must have returned maybe 3 or 6 months. So the baby was still pretty young. And she was then told she had to go out on a field exercise. So when you go out field in the army, that means, you literally go away from your home base for 2-3 weeks, whatever the period of time the field exercise is, and you're living in, well, not tents, but, you're basically living out in Waiuru or wherever it is, doing some training exercise. And this woman, just to add a whole lot of layers to her story, it really broke my heart, actually. She had been posted to Waiuru with her baby, and her partner, the father of the child, was posted to Linton. So that in itself, how hard is that? You've got 2 military parents in different locations.
And can you help for people who don't know where these locations are?
Oh, true. Sorry. So Linton is Palmerston North.
Right.
And Waiuru is sort of then halfway to Taupo.
And how far the distance is between them? Are they on 2 different islands?
No. So both North Island.
This is a terrible question. I hope I will never have to ask it again.
No, it's fine, actually, because lots of people don't always know these locations. Yeah. So, look, to be fair, it's drivable. It's sort of an hour and a half-ish.
Okay, but far apart.
But far apart that you're not living together.
So they'll be in place in different locations.
Yes. And they're not living in the same house. So this mum is now effectively doing a single mum role. That she's raising this baby by herself, and then her unit tells her that she has to go out field for 3 weeks.
With a 6-month-old baby?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she's
how are you going to do that?
So then her mum, who lived in Auckland, quit her job, to come and look after the grandchild while she was out field. She was still breastfeeding, and she had to basically wean her child, her tiny baby, with just a few days' notice.
Crazy.
Just crazy. So that's an extreme example. I don't want to make out that was the majority of experiences of parents in the army, because that would actually be unfair to the army. But this was just one example of
many.
Just, one of many.
But then that's not only happening in this army, it's happening in the real world though, isn't it?
Yes.
So have you had experiences where you had the chance to hear stories from mothers in the corporate world and their experiences with that kind of, challenge, like balancing motherhood and work?
Absolutely. And that was when I said, all these parents started reaching out and telling me their stories. That was all effectively corporate, not non-military examples. And, that military one's quite extreme. Most jobs don't require you to go into the field for 3 weeks at the time. That's not common. But just, parents who were told, my child's sick, daycare's called and said you have to come and pick up the child. And the boss is like, if you walk out that door, don't come back on Monday.
Do people actually say that these days? Like, are there bosses like that in this day and age?
Yeah.
Of flexibility?
Yes, there are. And that's the extreme. So I don't want to make out like that's the
But it
the
still
norm.
exists.
It still exists.
There's a spectrum of circumstances.
Yes.
From mild to extreme.
Yes. And I think the reason I give the extreme example is because sometimes there's people like, oh no, the world's changed now. Bosses are way more flexible. People are way more
working
accommodating.
From home and stuff like that. But like with things like Amazon, like I know this is more an American example, or even our government requiring people to work from the office full time again. Or I'm sure there's also a part where they were saying we can make a certain arrangement if your boss is happy with it or something. But with Amazon, they're making their staff work full time. And that's what we've always done in the past. So how did people make it work in the past? Or was it just so painful and difficult and we just had to deal with it and put it up with it? And now is the time to not put up with it with work school hours movement.
So how did they deal with it? They barely survived. So, most parents were not thriving. They were just scraping things together. And so many parents, so I kind of talk about 3 categories. Can I share that quickly?
Go for it.
So I briefly touched on it. One of the categories of parents were ones who basically were forced out of the paid workforce. And I don't mean parents who make a conscious decision to exclusively be with their children. This is parents who want to be in the paid workforce, but the juggle was just too much, or the cost of childcare just didn't stack up compared to what they could earn. So I call that disappointing category number 1. The second one was parents who worked full-time, and they really lamented on missing moments with their children. They missed the fact that they weren't there for school pickups. They couldn't go to their kids' swimming sports. They didn't get to spend time with their kids during the school holidays. And so that was, disappointing outcome number 2. And then the third one, which actually really got under my skin, was parents that were working part-time. So you think, oh, okay, well, this sounds like it could be a good compromise. But what would happen is that they would have a reduced hours contract, reduced pay, but no reduction in what was required of them. So these parents just became really efficient. They would get their work done in 25, 30 hours, whatever their new contract was. And they told me how lucky they were. Oh, Ellen, I'm so privileged. I'm one of the lucky ones who gets to work part-time. And I kept hearing this over and over. And I thought, there is nothing lucky about getting a pay cut to do the same amount of work. Like, this is societal-wide gaslighting. Anyway, sorry, my rage is setting in.
No, while you was talking, all I can think of is, like the people in my life who are parents and who are working super hard. People I know in my own family who, couples, and they struggle, to make it for dinner. The father would find it difficult to get there for dinner, or just having to think, okay, today is Wednesday, I'm doing half a day, and then I'll be able to go and pick up one child so I can spend time with that one child, because I don't spend time with them that as much. And then next week will be the other child. So there's like almost like a choice. Or maybe like they just want to, I don't know how they think, parents, but every time I listen to these stories, I know this conversation is probably really different to what we've been having on the podcast in terms of business, but the reality is business owners are parents. And if you're a business owner right now listening, thinking, oh, this is not really business, I want to learn about how I grow my business. Yeah, I mean, there's other podcasts that we talk about that, but this is going deeper into how can you make life good and business good, and how can you have that happy place.
Yes.
And whether it's ever possible for parents to have a full-time job and full-time children. So what are some of the practical ways that parents and workplaces can implement to have both work and children?
So the book #WorkSchoolHours and the movement and the TEDx talk of the same name, it's all about principles. So to be clear, this is not some sort of dogmatic, work school hours, only work between 9 and 3.
Right.
That's almost attention grabbing. So it's not that strict. It's principles based, and there's literally 3 principles. The first is organizations would benefit to value the fact that their people have things they care about outside of work. Now, the genesis for that is parents, because that's where this all came from for me. But actually, everyone has things they care about outside of work, regardless of whether they have children. Everyone has things that they need to attend beyond work. The second thing is that I really believe organizations, again, will do well to focus on outputs, not hours. We get really fixated on how many hours did a person work, when did they arrive at the office, when did they leave, or the work site, and how many hours did they do. But hours does not always equate to value contributed to the organization. So I think it's really important to focus on outputs, not hours. And then the third bit is give people flexibility where possible. So it's kind of like, I think we've got life, and within life we have various things that we need to attend to. Our job is one of them. If we have kids, that's one of them. If we have, parents in our life, friends, family, a hobby, for goodness sake, like we have different things in our life. And when we have flexibility, we are always the best people to know how to juggle all those things. So when we have flexibility, we can do some great work in the professional arena and do some great stuff in our personal life. But when we're so locked into this 9 to 5, it's impossible. School finishes at 3 o'clock. Sorry, this sounds sort of weird, but I think if we had a clean slate today, you'd have to be a complete moron to say, yeah, let's put all the adults on this schedule and we'll put all the children on a different schedule. Like that just seems actually bonkers to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. So it's not strictly 9 till 3.
Correct.
Work school hours.
Yes, correct.
But your principle is like okay, let's do this. So if an employer listening right now who runs 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 employees, 20 employees, and thinking, how can I even apply this practically to people in my workspace? I know it's a big question, maybe. How can I apply this to the people that work for me? What would be the thing that you would have advice for them?
Yeah. So, and yes, I absolutely happy to answer this question because this is how I help businesses with exactly that. Like, how do you apply it?
Yeah.
So I'll zoom back for just a second. In my mind, it's almost like a rigid work school hours is almost, okay, let's just say the world, literally we only work 9 till 3, we don't work school holidays, and we always get time off to attend swimming sports and all that. If I kind of think of that as one end of the spectrum, that we're probably not actually going to get there, and I kind of don't care, but I want us to move towards that. So I think about where we are now as 9 till 5. If we could get to actually strictly speaking work school hours on the other end of the spectrum, how do we move along and move towards that school hours end of the spectrum? And so for business owners, businesses are really struggling to attract and retain good talent. And so if you want great people, one of the ways that you can remunerate them is not just with, high salaries. It's actually really great working conditions. And I think especially for smaller businesses who struggle to compete on salary compared to really big corporates, I think this is a real value add for them. They can say to a worker, hey, look, I can pay you this amount. And I don't know, I'm just making up a number. Let's say it's 80% of what they might be able to earn in a bigger corporate. But we'll give you flexibility. And that counts for so much. Honestly, the amount of, and it is especially mums who have shared with me their stories where they've turned down significant pay rise opportunities because there was no flexibility, and it's just not worth it. That when you have flexibility, you don't ever want to go back. So I think that's one of the things that organizations can think about is, how do we attract people? Just give them some flexibility. I said before, one of the principles is around outputs, not hours. So I think what a business owner can do to really benefit them is get really clear with their team, what are the outputs we want to have delivered? And then ask the team, hey, look, do you think there's another way that we could do this more effectively or more productively? And if you come up with a way to do it more efficiently, you can go home.
Can you give me an example? Because I'm such an example lady.
Yes.
And I understand an idea of, give me a real life thing that you could suggest, how does that play out? I mean, I understand because when I used to work in one of the media organizations, I used to be able to do an 8 hours worth of work in 6 or less. And I used to think, I don't need 8 hours. I've already done my work. Because I'm pretty, I just get in there and just do my job. And not a lot of wasting of time and, but I was expected to stay there. So how does that, talking about outputs, how can we find ways to deliver the output and not having to worry about hours? How does that really practically, what are the conversations that people are going to be having in the workplace that you've been hearing?
So I'll try to address this on a couple of angles. So one is the fact that typically when employees are asked to be more productive and more efficient, they're not that motivated to do so. The reason being is, one, they fear that their job might be on their line. Often when businesses are looking to improve efficiencies and productivity, redundancies are something that people automatically think might follow. So that's not really a motivator to get more efficient. The other thing is people think, well, if I get more efficient, I'm just going to be given more work. So that's not really a great motivator either. But when a business owner says, hey, I genuinely mean this, if we as a team can figure out how we can get this stuff done faster, then we can all go home. It is amazing how creative people can be to come up with efficient ways to be more effective ways to be more efficient, because they're motivated by something that they care about, which is, I can go home. The fear of getting more work or maybe being made redundant does not drive productivity. And the other thing I wanted to add to that is New Zealand has one of the lowest productivity rates in the world. We're actually pretty poor performers in that regard.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Why is that?
So Kiwis...
Would we like to talk a lot?
What's that, sorry?
We like to talk a lot.
No.
At the workplace.
No, it's that we have this real philosophy of hero worshipping long hours. The kind of, Kiwi hard worker. We respect someone who's a hard worker, or they stayed late at work, so they're committed and they're loyal. And we really, we kind of attach people that work long hours as being dedicated or effective, which is, it's just not true. So we work really long hours, but we become less effective because we're burnt out and we're tired.
Yeah.
And just as you said then, you could get 8 hours worth of work done in 6 hours. Of course you did, because you're effective. But the way we gear our system when we pay people for hours, there's no motivator to be more efficient.
Yeah. Well, it was the motivation to leave early.
Well, yes.
Or skip traffic.
Yes. And so you were able to do that, I'm guessing.
Oh, it was a great motivator.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean. You had a motivator that actually meant something to you. And I think the way we are very obsessed with hours. It's really, really ingrained in our system that we pay people for how many hours. And if someone's turned up late, business owners think, oh, I'm not going to pay them for that period of time that they weren't here. Actually pay them for the outputs you wanted them to deliver. Don't get so fixated on the hours.
Yeah, like in my other work, sometimes I have showed up late, but to compensate for that, I get straight into it, work my butt off to produce the output in fraction of the time, because there's no wasting of time to, just to honor the commitment that this employer has given me. This is back when I used to work full time. So you were talking about two angles, and I don't know if you got to the second angle.
Oh, yes. Oh my goodness.
I have to trace angle? Back into our little conversation.
No, sorry, I'm trying to think. What was my other angle?
No, you're good.
Oh, this was around practical advice for business owners.
Yes.
So I was saying the first one was really about getting clear on the outputs and then basically addressing the fears people might have about becoming more efficient. So really, you can go home early. I'm not going to give you more work. I'm not going to fire you or make you redundant. We want all of us to go home early. The other thing is, business leaders, we all do this. The amount of stuff that we do that we don't actually need to. So when we get really clear on what are we trying to achieve in this business, and if we be really honest with ourselves in terms of literally like going through an exercise, writing down, chatting about it, what are all the tasks that we do? How many of those tasks can actually just be crossed off? How many of those tasks do we not need to do anymore because they're not adding value to what we're trying to achieve? And again, this hours obsession that people have, we'll be busy. We'll look busy. We'll make ourselves busy. But are we busy doing the things that really matter for the organizational performance, or are we just being busy because that's what we're so used to being?
How has this response been with all of that, like principles and ideas and how you can make things work? How has the corporate world responded? How has the world responded?
So I'm excited about this bit. So no, the world hasn't changed overnight. I know that. I've still got a long way to go. I can't for a second think, oh yeah, we're done here. We're not. Yeah. But so the work that I do, I'm a keynote speaker and I do facilitating and training on leadership. So that's my space. Is if we're going to have effective outcomes for businesses, we need to develop leadership capabilities. And so I help people with how we do leadership in a really human way. And #WorkSchoolHours is almost like a kind of a subset of my work. So I think leadership's the umbrella.
Gotcha.
That's how I help people, is in the leadership space. And the principles of #WorkSchoolHours is a tool or a mechanism to help improve leadership capabilities and therefore organizational performance. So that's, I guess I'm saying that's what I do. But in order to give you the answer of how has the response been, I don't have the most crystal clear ways of measuring that. But one of the ways I can is by the fact that I'm getting booked, right? So businesses are booking me to come and talk about this because they want to know more. I think most businesses have woken up to the fact that flexible working is the way of the future. If they don't offer it, they are just not going to get great talent. And so even if business leaders are doing it begrudgingly, they know that they need to offer flexible working, but they just, they don't always know how to do it. And so I think the fact that, businesses are bringing me in to have these conversations, do this training, means that they actually have an appetite for it. So I think that's some kind of good validation.
I think you have a leadership model, which is belonging, autonomy, and purpose. And I kind of wanted to ask you about the publishing of a book and what was it like, but I think we should get into the leadership, especially if we were talking about if an employer listening going, how can I help my employees implement the work school hours and effectively being a good leader, right? So now let's go into the leadership side, the big umbrella, what you kind of generally talk about. So someone listening going, I'm a leader, I want to be a leader, or I'm leading a team. Help me to be better, to have that productivity and eventually have better profits, higher profits.
Yeah.
The bottom line.
Yeah.
But it's not better profits, but also happy people. I think that's really your premise. Happy people, because happy at home, happy at work, happy at work, happy at home.
Yes. And what to continue that thread, people often think that profits and happy staff are mutually exclusive. They're not. They go hand in hand. There's so much evidence to show that when people feel good at work, they feel good about being there, they're happy, they feel engaged, they feel that they're valued, those people make companies more money. Like it is it is that simple. It's not I want my business to be profitable, so I can't treat my staff that well. Oh my goodness, those two things go together. So I think that's a really big leadership kind of point, is that when we treat our people well, they will make us more money.
How can we treat people well? How can we treat our employees well?
I, again, feel really fortunate. I had some pretty amazing experiences leading in the military, leading in the corporate sector, studying leadership, being involved in that volunteer Afghanistan evacuation task, becoming a parent. All of these kind of things came together for my leadership philosophy. So I believe that a leader's job is to create an environment where their people can thrive and then direct that thriving energy at the task that needs to be achieved. So that's what I really believe, is that leaders get your people to thrive and then basically point that thriving energy at what you want it to be pointed at. And people need three things to thrive. They need a sense of belonging. Now, belonging is, as Brené Brown says, is not the same as fitting in. So fitting in is when we show up and we adjust ourselves to be what we think is required. And when we are doing that, we can never do our most effective work. It takes a lot of energy to try and fit in or put a mask on or behave in a way that you think is expected of you. But when you just belong, that is when you can show up as your whole self. And we're all unique. We're all a little bit weird. We all have our quirks. We all have our, authentic things that are unique to us. But when we can show up and just be me, we do our best work. And I know this from my own experiences. I know it from my research. When people feel that they belong, they can relax. They can think more strategically. They can be more critical thinkers. They can really bring their best when they feel they belong. The second thing that people want is a sense of autonomy. And that means we don't want to be micromanaged. We all like to have some agency or control over how, when, and where we do our tasks. And the last thing we need is purpose. We need to know that what we do matters. So I think in terms of, leaders, and that's what I try and do, is help them with their leadership capacity or capabilities, is help them to learn how to build an environment where their people have belonging, how to give people more autonomy, and how to make sure that people are really clear on what is their purpose. If I'm asking my team members to do a particular job, especially if it's a job that's not that fun, why? Why does it need to be done? How is this going to make a difference to the team, to the organization? And so to me, the principles of work school hours kind of fit within that. Giving people the sense of belonging, autonomy, and purpose means we focus on outputs, not hours. We give people flexibility.
I'm going to ask you about the example again, because I love examples, like real life. Someone, listening now thinking belonging, autonomy and purpose. Yep, I have a bit of belonging. I don't quite have autonomy and definitely don't have purpose. Or like an employer now thinking, how can they, again, like practical examples of how you've been able to go into a workplace and seen like the before and after.
Yes.
I don't know if you've got a before and after, like a case study that you can share so that we can help us understand what is a bad example of belonging, what is a bad example of autonomy, a bad example of purpose, and then how did that get turned around to, be inspired to have a different scenario.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. I think examples are a really great way to illustrate a point. It's all good for me to say all this. Yes, do all these things in theory, but how does it work in practice?
In the real life, how does it look like?
And what I will say as well, the book, it's absolutely full of practical examples from a wide range of industries. So sometimes people think, oh, this is all well and good for knowledge workers, but what about a shift worker or a construction site? So just, I guess, to promise you, there's some examples of that.
So there's quite a lot in the book.
Yes, lots of the whole third part of the book is all the how do you do this? How do you practically implement it? And with, again, lots of examples of businesses, no one's going to read and be like, oh yes, that's exactly my business and I'll follow this step 1, 2, 3. No, but they'll see enough examples to think, oh, okay, yep, I can actually see how I could tweak and apply that in my work setting.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think an example of, I'll give one kind of full example. It was actually, I did some work with some dairy farmers. So this is, I think, a really good, it's both a practical example and it's a practical industry. So this was dairy farmers, and I ran this workshop for them on belonging, autonomy, purpose. And the farm manager came back to me. We did a follow-up session several months later. And he said, oh my goodness, my farm has completely transformed. So the way that he used to do things was the milkers would arrive in the cow shed in the morning. The farm manager, he would basically have a whiteboard and he'd list the tasks that needed to be done, and he'd assign the worker to the tasks, if that makes sense. So it'd be like, we've got to do X, Y, and Z, this is who's doing it. There was basically no conversation. They just looked at the whiteboard, thought, okay, that's what I have to do for the day. After this, he really wanted to give this a go. And so he said, I got the team together and said, I want to spend a couple of hours not doing milking or other farm tasks. I want us to talk about how we might do things a little bit differently as a team. And what was super cool is he said by the end of it, he wasn't the person writing all the tasks on the board. The team were. The team would get in. They would write the tasks. They would assign the tasks. And they started taking ownership because they had a really clear understanding of the purpose. They felt a sense of belonging by being part of this conversation. And by being able to have some agency on the tasks, they had autonomy. And one of the really effective benefits for that farm manager is, so for people that know about farm managers, they don't always love to take leave because they feel like they've always got to be there. This guy, he said, I took 2 weeks off. He said, I've never done that before on the farm. And the team ran it. And he said, this is amazing.
Wow.
So not only did he benefit because he got some more free time, his team became this really engaged, team of people that didn't need to be micromanaged anymore. So I think that's maybe a wholesome example. If I give you maybe more on each of the specifics, what is not belonging and what is.
Yeah.
So I think actually I'll do an autonomy one because it's just front of mind. Is I've got this story, and I share it in the book and in my TED talk, where there was this guy who had something happened with his car and he needed to get the car to the mechanic. And he was at work and he asked his boss, hey, can I duck out to the mechanics to take my car there for, do whatever it needs to be done and come back. I'll be back within a couple of hours. And the boss said, no, it's work hours. You need to be here. So the guy was present in body at work, but he was spending most of the time actually on the phone trying to find a mechanic who could see him, after, normal business hours. He also had a kid that he had to pick up from daycare. And so he was trying to find a friend who had an appropriate car seat, who could then pick up his kid from daycare. He had to liaise with the daycare to give them permission that this other person could pick up their child from daycare. Like, it was just all this logistical crap that this guy was trying to work through. And therefore, he actually wasn't very effective at his job that day. The boss would have been way better off to just say, sure, go get your car sorted and then come back. And then the guy could have actually given his full attention and energy to his job. But because the boss was so kind of micro on presenteeism and you must be here and I'm paying you for these hours, so no, you cannot go to the mechanic, the guy didn't actually add that much value to the business that day. And that does not make him a bad performer. That makes him a human. So I think that's an example where he was not given autonomy to deal with something, and just how stupid of that business leader, because no one benefited. The guy's just there at work stressed, but the business is like, yep, tick, he's still at work, so I've achieved a win for me.
Yeah.
But hadn't.
Yeah.
I think the purpose one is,
yep.
Gosh, I've got so many examples. I'm trying to think of a really...
Purpose is a big one, isn't it? purpose.
Yeah.
Talking about purpose is so important because I have to do things that have purpose. And if they don't have purpose or meaning, I find it really difficult to do.
Yep.
And I can't just do a job for the sake of a job or just for the sake of being paid.
Mm-hmm.
I really have to like put a lot of effort into it. But in your work, purpose is really important.
So I mean, my business is really purpose driven. So I don't like to say the word lucky because sometimes we often overuse that word, but I feel like I'm in a great position where what I'm doing, I believe in it like so much.
You're sold out.
Like I really I have a purpose and it motivates the crap out of me. And so I just think that that's how all people, research based, that people, when they have purpose, they really get behind something and they really put in a lot of energy. And I don't mean hours, I just mean they really put in their best work, their best effort when they really believe in the purpose. So purpose is kind of at two levels. So if we think about the purpose of the organization, business leaders need to convey a purpose that actually resonates with the people in the organization. So if the business is, our purpose is to make as much money as possible for our shareholders, it's not that likely that all of the employees in the company are going to resonate or feel aligned to that purpose. So it's important that businesses, work out what is their business's purpose and how is that going to actually be meaningful for the people that work for them. So that's kind of the bigger picture of purpose.
Yeah.
But then if we get into sort of more micro examples, is if you are being asked to do a task, we shouldn't have a mindset of, well, I've just told you to do it, so you should do it. In fact, this is a good lesson for me as a parent because I don't always get this perfectly right either. I also find with my kids, if I tell them to do something and they're like, why, mum? And if I just resort to, because I said so, it's not very effective. I have to be like, well, actually, Monty and Toby, this is why. Because if you do this task, it means we're going to get away earlier and go to the park.
Well, ask
whatever.
why has come back to bite you.
It really has, Mina. Actually, that is very true. It really has.
Yeah.
But I try really hard to, and it's hard work, but to keep fostering that because I know how lucky I think I was that was fostered. So I'm trying to do the same with my kids. So that's kind of a parenting one. But in the workplace, and I think people are people, right? So this stuff is applicable in your work life and your personal life because we've got life and all of life involves interacting with other people. Yeah. Some of it's in a home, some of it's at a workplace, but it's all just, how we interact with people. So if a leader is asking someone in their team to do something, tell them why. Like, why does that matter? Link it to what the purpose is. And just a practical example I can think of, and it's a farming one. The team were told that they had to, apply some, oh my gosh, I'm losing my words, do something to a cow, right? So they had to apply this treatment to the cow. Mm-hmm. And when the boss was actually like, the reason we apply this treatment to the cow is because it's going to improve their milk quality. And if their milk quality is improved, that means it's going to have beneficial outcomes for the business. So when the people understand, oh, that's why I'm doing this treatment. Sorry, I should have used a more non-farming example because I'm not a farming expert.
No, that's good. I like the consistency.
But it gives it meaning.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's why I'm doing it. And the other thing is when someone does something good in the team, and this is another farming example, one of the farmers sorted out some issue on the farm. There was something was going wrong in the paddock. The worker fixed it. And then that leader said, hey, that is so awesome that you did this. That means we don't have to spend this many $1,000s on bringing in this new piece of equipment. And just being really clear about what they did, what was the positive outcome for the farm as a result of that. And so I think of maybe an office example is if you're asking someone, you must write these reports. Well, why? Who's going to read them? What are they going to do with those reports? What's the purpose behind them? People are like, oh, okay, cool, I get it now. And it makes their quality of work so much better because they're not just, okay, I've got to write this report, whatever. But if they know that that person is going to make a decision based on it, that will refine how they write the report, and it makes them more motivated to write it.
I love that. That's good.
No.
It's important to have that background and explaining why you do what you do, like why you're doing this. And I think people, like, we are very much humans who want to understand. Some people don't care, but we really want to understand why we're doing this and well, what's the point of it? So I love that you've given us this example, and thank you for these examples. I think they are so enriching to help me understand what the heck is work school hours and what the heck is all these like principles that you've been touched on. Perhaps I want to have a real quick snapshot into what you see happen in the future, the vision for the future, like how work is going to evolve, how you're going to balance flexibility with the demands of the tasks at work, and it's actually like an individual mindset, every boss is going to be different, and it's actually, you said it yourself, this boss is going to let you off, this boss is not going to let you off. So you really are working on a subjective basis, not everyone's following the same rule. Do you have to go and speak to every single boss and like change them now? But where do you see this going? In terms of like the impact this is going to make.
So I'm really upfront with the fact I can't change the world by myself, but I think we can change it together. So am I going to have an opportunity to have a conversation with every boss that exists? No, absolutely not. But when more and more people get behind this movement and are thinking, you know what, this makes sense, we all have more influence than we maybe think we do. And that's kind of when I said at the start, you asked me what made me think that I could have an impact in this space. And I don't know, I just have this high level of self-efficacy that, well, if I try really hard, I reckon I can do it. And I think anyone can have more influence and impact than they might believe that they can. So when leaders understand the commercial benefits to doing this, I think that makes it so much easier. So we started off and I was talking about the challenges of working parents and almost the problem, but I get way more excited about being, hey, the solution is good for everyone. Like it's a win-win for both business leaders and individuals. So I think, I ask people, if you read my book or listen to a podcast or, attend one of my talks, don't just sit there and listen and think, oh, okay, cool, that's nice. Do something about it. Yeah. Like I ask everyone, if you get anything that you think is valuable from this conversation to the listeners, please do something about it. Please go have a conversation with the people in your life. Please ask for, hey, maybe we could do things differently. And I really do believe that we can change the working world together. I believe that flexibility is the way of the future. And I think we can all play a part in getting people on board with this in a way that makes everyone feel safe and comfortable that this is good for the business and good for the people.
Well, yeah, of course. And I do hope that people will take on board what we've talked about and go and implement things. And of course, get their copy of Work School Hours. And I am so thankful for you for being bold and doing stuff, like getting good stuff done, like, a good old Kiwi will do. And congratulations on the hard work that you've been up to, because it's not easy. And I really hope that you get into the government organizations and start changing things in there a little bit. Because, hopefully having conversations with Prime Minister, who knows? If you've had a chance. Have you ever had the chance to speak to the Prime Minister? Or
I actually have.
Oh, good.
To be fair, I'm all just,
a quick hello, was it?
Quick hello. And
hopefully it's more than a quick hello.
I have given him a copy of my book.
Okay.
So I don't know if he'll read it.
Yeah.
Actually, can I say one thing, Mina? I didn't write a book for a goal of selling books. I don't make money out of books. My goal isn't to sell books. My goal is to change the world. So I created a wee code, Mina100. Any of your listeners, if you go onto my website, go to the shop page, there's an eBook. You can get it for free. So anyone in your network who uses Mina100, so MINA 100, can get that ebook for free, because I know the content in it is good.
Awesome.
And I want people to access it.
Thank you. We'll have a link in the description or in so thank you for that. I appreciate it, for giving us this opportunity to get a book and to just learn more about how we can change our workspace and our family space as well. So thank you for your heart and for your vision. What sort of last words would you have that will give people listening a final I don't know, just the final thoughts.
I guess so. I'm just an eternal optimist. And I just think if anyone else thinks, yeah, there's something good in this, then we have the power to do something about it. Yes, we all have limited, gosh, that's not a good final word. There's, we all have limits, but our limits are so much further away than we think we are.
There's more in us than we think.
Yes, that's the better word. Thank you, Rita. Yes, there is more in us than we think. And if you think something can be different, then go for it. Give it a go. Like, try it. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you, Ellen, for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Rita, for having me.